That's why they always buy it. And I always go think them because I always try to buy it.
I think like this would be things to fire from head and.
All right, so we're gonna do lab 4 when I get my computer to like me again. So everybody has idle up and running, and you're gonna follow along with me because you all want to get 100 on lab 4. So all right, go to new file, open it, save it. And yes, I still have people that are turning in the wrong file. So if you're one of those people that keep getting comments that say wrong file and get a 0, this is how you do it. New file, open, save as.
So they
What? You gotta speak slower or something. Or less mumble. Are you sure? Okay. All right. So I'm not gonna have that argument with you. I have it with my son often enough because I swear he speaks mumble. You're in class with him. He does not enunciate. So that being said, we're gonna do lab 4. I'm gonna try not to throw my son under the bus again, but I will. It'll happen. So do not turn in this window. If these little caret symbols over here show up in your code, or that starts off with this, you are turning in the wrong window. Can I grade it from there? I could, but I'm not going to. And after this, starting this week, I would not be able to even grade it properly from there because we're going to be using functions. The window will let you write a function and immediately use it. But if you don't write them all in the right order, you can't go back to them in that runtime window because it's runtime. It doesn't save them. You close it, open it back up, it's not there. All right. So the first part of this one is, like I said, in every one of them, the first part is always start idle, create a file, first name, last name, .py. You don't have to put the .py on there. It will put it on there for you if you're in idle. If you do put it on there, it just shows up as .py. It still opens for me, and I'm okay with that. It's not great practice, and will screw you up eventually, but I will at least still have something correct. All right, so we did that. Now we're gonna do part 0. And yes, somebody pointed out to me that last week's thing that I had part 0, and then I jumped to part 2. That's because I took part 1 out and forgot to renumber the parts below that and made it shorter. Sorry. It is what it is. All right, so we're going to define a main function at the top of our program. So the first thing we're going to do is define main. Remember, main is our driver. It's going to run the school bus. How well you do main is going to be how well your driver is. So I'm going to start off with a comment that says part 0. I wrote it for you this time, right? And I guarantee you somebody's going to turn it in and says Lab 4 by Sally Mae. always at least one other person is very literal and they type it exactly as they see it.
I wanted to do it first, so I'm not gonna lie.
It happens. It happens all the time because you're so intent on copying that your brain just copies exactly what it sees. I get it. I laugh a little bit every time it happens, but I don't usually take off for it.
Computers.
All right, so this is a main function. You've never written one before today. Unless you went ahead of me and started lab 4 because you're an overly eager student. But so what I want you to know is I usually do put the main at the top and I leave it at the top. Other people like it at the bottom. So the directions might tell you to put the function before main because I got these labs from the department and have been modifying them, but you know, some people in the department do it different than I do. This is going to be a personal choice for you, at least in here, with me being the teacher. If main makes more sense to you at the bottom, put it at the bottom. If it makes more sense to you at the top, put it at the top. If you're following my examples, it's going to be at the top. It's probably less confusing if you're brand new to coding. So just go ahead and put it at the top and follow my examples. All right, so I want to point out some key parts to this. DEF is in orange because that's a key word. It's, well, yellow, orange, something. Depends on your color filters of your eyes. I think it's a little orange. Other people tell me it's yellow. It's a key word. It means that you're defining something. You're defining, in this case, a function. Main is also a special thing. So it's blue, right? Because it's special. Main is a special function. Main does not take any parameters because it shouldn't need anything to run because it's what's going to start your entire program, right? Then I'm going to do like I did before. I'm going to indent in. Everything that belongs to the main function is indented over. So this function has one line of code in it. It has a print function. And then I jump down here and I've indented back out and I have a function call to main. Now this is very important. You have to have that function call or it never calls main. You've written it, but it never happens. And this needs to be the last line of your code. The very last thing that happens should be the call to main. So what I suggest you do, and what I usually do, is I write it like this, where I know I've got all the pieces, and then I come back in here and I put a whole bunch of blank lines in. Why? Now I put all my new stuff between the two and I never lose my main at the bottom. Does that make sense? So if I run this now, all it does is print. Right? Yay, you've wrote your first function. So that is part 0. Oh, look, part 1's missing. It must have been this one that had the 1 missing. So I took something out. I can't count. It's okay. Just go with it. So part 2 is write a function that will compute the area of a circle given its diameter. Math majors are going to help me make sure I don't make any mistakes when I write this formula in a minute, right? What? What's wrong?
Letters are not high.
Nothing on the desk, nothing on the print. I mean,
The string is not even green.
Okay, hold on a second. You gonna help? All right, so I'm gonna get everybody started on this function and then I'll come help you if he doesn't get it straight. All right, so what we're gonna do here it's actually laid out for you. I actually have the lines that I want you to use, right? So we're going to create a function. We're going to give it the diameter. So it has a parameter, right? And then we're going to return the area or print the area, one of the two.
It's not. Yes. The function runs now, it's shaped now on the main. Not colored.
That is weird. Feel free to change machines if you want to.
I go into options and click on settings.
Should do. I just did. I've never seen it do that. So. All right, so let's do some code typing real quick. And I'm gonna be honest with you, since this is a Word document, you could grab this and copy and paste it. I'm gonna tell you though, you're more likely to end up with a mistake that you can't find, and you're gonna be frustrated because Word has a lot of background formatting, so the punctuation doesn't always copy and paste correctly into idle. It'll look right. It'll look like quotation marks, but they're not the right quotation marks. And you're going, oh, I have an error. So this line, and then again, maybe your mouse won't let you copy and paste. So this is our function header. We're defining our function. Note that it is the defs all line up on the edge of the screen. Don't indent it. If you indent it, it is now inside of main, and you created a function inside of a function, which you absolutely can do, but you may not want to. Right? Okay. So we're going to compute the area of a circle. This is a really long function name, but it's very, very clear what the function is supposed to do. It's a good practice to always have a clear definition or a clear name, because if you came back to this in a week and you called it Bob, you wouldn't know what that function did, right? Mm-hmm. And yes, I did have a high school student who thought they were really super funny, and they did their whole entire final project using Pokemon characters as the name of all of their functions and variables. Because I didn't realize this, but there's hundreds of different Pokemons.
Yep.
And he played competitively. So he knew them all. I do not. You get past Pikachu and I'm done. All right. So we have we have passed in or created a parameter variable called diameter. We are now going to write code. Now, you can copy and paste the whole thing, but you won't have learned anything, right? So it does tell you how to do this. But what the key thing you have to know is that you're going to be using math.py. Remember we did turtle.forward? Guess what? There's a math module already pre-built that has math functions in it, like the standard number they're using for pi. Do I know how many decimal places it goes to? No, I don't. I could look it up if you want to.
Do we need to define, or do we need to import math, or is math.py enough on its own?
That is an excellent question. We're going to find out.
It says it.
It says it in the directions.
Oh, let me look. Well,
Huh? Did you have a question?
oh no.
Just play with your hair. All right, so if you read the directions thoroughly, since you're using math.py, you will need to import math.
Yeah.
Where do I think import statements should always go? Very top. So I'm going to do that even before I define my main. Why? Because I may end up using math in main later. So if I have it up there, I'm covered for the entire bulk of this code, right? I see some confused looks. Come on. You look perplexed. Come on. Yeah. Okay, just checking. Maybe you're asleep. That's fine. All right. So early morning classes always put me to sleep. So we are going to use math.py. We also have letter C here that says, remember when we're doing the area of a circle that we're actually going to be using the radius as our area, not the diameter, because the formula calls for IR squared, right? Math majors. Yes. So first thing we need to do is get the radius. So down here, I'm going to go radius is equal to diameter. And diameter never looks like a word when I type it. I don't know why. It just one of those words I always say that. All right. So now I have the radius. Now I need to get the area, right? And I need the radius squared. And as we covered back in one of the other chapters, 2 stars is raising it to a power. 1 star is just straight multiplication.
Do you want to turn diameter into a float here or just leave it as is?
Diameter will automatically turn itself into a float because this is Python, and Python is loosey-goosey. Now, if you have Java experience, your head's exploding at this point because you're like, no, I need to define my variable types. There's no semicolons at the end of the line, and there's no typing done on
I
your.
get to go at the end of every lab. I get to go through and delete all the statistics.
Somebody left the Java assignment for this week up here on the thing. I should have just taught you that today, and you would all hated me. All right, and then we're going to return the area. Now, the reason we're going to use a return statement is because if we computed all that math and didn't have a return, the function will run and do it, but it never sends it back to the main for you to be able to do anything with. Yes, ma'am. All the way back.
On my end, like on my word, it says define the best one. Not certain.
Are you in the assignment or are you in the lab?
Yes, no.
We're doing the lab. It's okay. The lab is much easier than the assignment. You want to do it first.
Why would you do assignment if I have to go to
Because that's where you prove that you learned something.
Well, you teach us the hard stuff first.
I was
We'll
just
be able to
saying,
understand.
you learn something.
You have to know.
Wine.
something.
No, I am not doing the assignment with you in class because that's your time to shine and show me how smart you are. The lab,
Did you think I had a single brain cell? Or any of us?
you made it to college. I hope you have basic.
Oh.
I think you consulted all of you. All right. I realize it's still fairly early in the morning, so you might need to wake your brain cells up, but that's why you have Monster back there, right?
That is true.
All right. So you have this function now. Now, if I run this, all right. I know we're having fun, but let's get through this because you're going to be really mad if we don't finish it before. All right. So now we've got this done, and I can run it. And what's going to happen when I run it at this point? Absolutely nothing. It's going to print my name, and that's it. Because we haven't actually called this function. Until you call it, it doesn't run. So now every time you want to test a function, you're going back to your main. And in this case, we're going to print the area of a circle with diameter. I can't spell. 3 is now. If you're just testing, do you have to put this print statement in front of it? Absolutely not. You could just call it because you know you're just testing. But I'm doing this just where you can see it. When I run it, right? You all get the same answer? Oh, good. I typed the formula correctly. But I also, to test, since it was just me testing and I'm not ready to turn it in, could just do this with the function name in the print statement. And as long as I know that I'm just looking for that number to come back, we're fine. Does that make sense? Because it just printed the return value. And you're gonna go, but it didn't make me turn it into a string, and it printed to the screen, and it didn't, because input statements are weird, and everything inside of an input statement has to be a string, so that's the reason you had to convert the I+1 to a string before you could print it in the last lab. All right, so we have 2 functions, and I have tested it. I will probably need something there later, but I'm going to comment that out just to get it out of my way, right? So let's go back to our lovely directions over here. And what? Oh, okay. Anyway, so it wants you to put together a function call and a print and pass in the diameter and then the print statement to print it out, right? So you can do this 2 ways. The way I just did it, instead of the area of something's going to do that. Or you can put an input statement in, ask the user for a diameter, and then pass that diameter in, right? So let me show you how to do that. Let's go ahead and make that a number, right? Now, if you notice, our print lines are getting very, very long. Right? Because we're doing a lot of things together. Do you have to do it all like this? No, you could go ahead and get the go ahead and compute the area, save it in a variable, that sort of thing. But I'm trying to show you that you can put things together. So the area of the circle with the diameter is this. Is this going to run? Am I going to have errors? Maybe. Let's run it and see. Y'all don't look convinced one way or the other, so let's just run it, see what happens. So a print statement will print out numbers, but an input statement will not print out. And you're all going, why? Because somebody wrote it that way. I'm sorry. No, really, input statements, the parameter inside of the parentheses on an input function has to be a string. So you have to convert everything to a string. You use the plus signs because you're adding it together to make one long string instead of the print function, which will take multiple different parameters, which are divided up by commas. Could you put plus signs between all of this and print it out? Yeah, as long as you converted everything to strings first. You could do the same thing in the print statement that you did in the input statement, but you don't have to. I know, computer science, there always has to be some exception to something. It's kind of like the English language, we got to make it hard. All right, so does this make sense to everybody? Now I don't need this, so I'm gonna get rid of it. The great thing is I'm videotaping this, so if you don't get it all before I leave class, you can go to my YouTube playlist, right, for this class, find the lab 4, and you can freeze it on this screen and copy it. Or pause it or whatever. Which is why I don't understand why I don't get 100% participation on all the labs with everybody making 100 on them. But you would be amazed how many people don't go watch the videos. All right, so the next part wants you to add a function to compute the circumference of the circle. Using the diameter. The formula for circumference is pi times diameter. Right? Math majors, back me up on this, I'm not crazy. And yeah, I had to go look up some of these too, because it's been a long time since I've done geometry and areas of shapes. So notice I didn't write the code for you in the directions for this one. So I'm gonna give you a second or two to start writing to see if you come up with the same thing I did. All right, so I've let you write. This is actually easier to write, in my opinion, because you can do it all in one. There's not as much math. You don't have to divide the diameter. You know, you can just do math.pi times diameter and return it. Right? Now, I'm gonna be honest with you. If this wasn't a teaching lesson, I would abbreviate circumference. But because I'm teaching it to you guys and I want you to be clear, I spelled it out. Why would I abbreviate circumference? Because I have a really hard time spelling it. And if you watch me type it, I was reading it off of something every time I typed it because I wanted to make sure I spelled it correctly. So for our purposes, we're using very, very long function names. Because this could have been, you know, shortened up to, you know, area of circle and left the compute off. Or you could have just done circ of circle, right? You could have shortened it. But for our intents and purposes, while we're grading, if I give you a function name, you need to use exactly what I gave you. Because then it matches the rubric. And when we're checking things off, we can find it easy. Save your funny abbreviations and your funny variable names for your personal code, not what you're turning in. Question? Yes.
For some reason, the last one where I was just trying to compute the area, the circle diameter, is not wanting to run it.
Not wanting to run it. Okay. I will come look at yours. Give me just a second. I'm gonna run this one to prove it works real quick. I'm using 8 because it's already calculated and you test the numbers. You can put in any number. Did anybody else have an error where it's not running? She didn't. Well, she named it part. Well, she did part 2. She just did. She didn't say part 2 yet. She got it. That's why I was like,
So we start at part 0.
Yeah.
And then just go to like.
Yeah, she said she took that one.
Busy.
I honestly don't think it really matters. I don't think it's the notes for like somebody to know what you're doing. Notes. Honestly, you don't even have to part. That's a
Like if we're having an empty fridge, you just keep it.
This is the right. Also, why is it? I don't know if it should work. Oh, sorry, your phone. I thought on my back pocket of the computer behind me. When I put that in. You missed out some compounds. Well, functions definition. got it. No, O, and no O is in function. Typos will get you every time. This one. Yeah. Double close.
But, oh, we're wrong. Oh, no.
If you've got this working, go help one of your neighbors, because you're a nice person. Okay, so go to the line above that. Okay.
So I've got the main way down there. Goes into there. Follows it.
I can't believe I actually did.
And it goes in here.
My code actually worked.
The detector in there. Calculation, it's a calculation of what? But then we can go to the return.
Yeah,
Uh,
but I was like, I wasn't expecting it to work, because I was like, I don't know how to do this. Type something.
they work.
Yeah.
You put capital case in it.
I have another question.
I had the same problem with the other one, I thought I got one where I could figure it out.
For
Range, that's
Yeah.
what, I had the 4i.
That matters.
Yeah, I did that first, then I remembered this. Because it says like, for count number 9.
Okay. Part 4.
And I'm in there.
Oh, wait.
You really don't think that was
Okay, that time then you can call the function. Thanks. Cameron needs me as well.
No, that one has me.
And then the method calls.
Oh, here.
because it's not a complete statement, so it has all the parts in it. And that's like processes. Did you say? So it's giving you a memory location instead of. Do you like Fred?
I like it. Yeah, I think it's interesting. You get more and more interesting. More I
This
get.
is function name, right? This is crap.
Yeah, you like-
What function?
Or do you like math or do you like the teaching?
I love it. So what it gave you was the memory location before that function is at and not actually.
Yeah, talk about, you know, like, research instead of
Yeah.
like.
Thank you.
You want to teach math,
Yeah.
but the teaching is a part of it.
Yeah, no problem.
Can I understand how much of a miracle that was? Because I don't know what's going on.
It still won't come.
I literally took a photo of your thing before you.
You can look at it, right? But it won't convert in diameter.
That's two weird things happening. All right, so we have code. Y'all should have yelled at me and I didn't put it back up there. So we've got three functions now. We have a main, we have area, we have circumference. Right? Part 3. How many parts are there to this one? A lot. Okay, so let's get some more done. So part 3, we're going to display characters in a line. So now we're going to write a function with a loop in it. Ooh. We're gonna pull all the pieces together. Come on. So I will point out that there is a special character that we're going to use to keep our print statement from doing a return character after every print. That way we can put several together on the same row. And that's this end equals with empty quotation marks. That's a special character. You probably read about it in your Xi books. If you read the Xi books, you may not remember, but we are going to use it. So what we're trying to do in this one is we're going to display rows of the same character, but we're going to use a loop to create them. Because we need to practice our loops. So we're going to create a function called display character line. It will take two parameters. It's going to take the character we're using, or in this case, it's called output because that's shorter than character. And we're going to take a count. That's how many times we want that character to appear. So we have a count's going to be our loop variable. That's how many times our loop's going to run, right? So because I'm lazy and I can. Let me put some more blank lines in here where y'all can. Y'all can see what I'm doing a little better. That's above the monitor levels, right? So we're going to display the characters. And we're going to do this by using a for loop because B says write a for loop. And what's our range going to be? Count. And what are we going to do inside of our loop? Anyone? We're going to print using our special character. Now, we're printing output because that's what we want to print. Because the user is going to give us what we're printing. And it's going to give us the count. And you're all thinking, oh, that's really short. But it does exactly what we needed it to do, right? Okay, let me prove it to you. So now if I come up here, and because I don't want to spend all the time running these right now. You're welcome to comment out things while you're testing to make it go faster, especially if you're drawing with turtles and stuff. You want to comment out the parts you don't want to watch the turtle draw. But remember to uncomment them before we run, because then we're probably still going to grade them. Well, we're still going to grade them, but we're going to take off for the fact that you left the majority of your code commented out, because technically it didn't execute. So don't lose points for forgetting to take out a commented line. So yeah, you can run it all if you want to, it doesn't matter. So now if I just call the function, what character I want to use, let's do that one. And we'll want to print it 5 times. And I run it. Oops. Oh, I get syntax errors all the time. I'm gonna lie to you and tell you I did it on purpose. I didn't. This needs to be a character, so I need to put quotes around it. Yeah, the at symbol.
Make this string.
We need to make it a string. Because the first parameter needs a string because it's not gonna take it otherwise. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So now if I run it. Now that's just me that's a copy paste mistake. That's why you don't want to copy paste. Because you forget to take things out. And I do that all the time. People do that all the time. If you ever run code that you wrote for the very first time and it compiles 100% correctly on the first try, take a screenshot. You're going to save that for future reference because it happens so infrequently. If you've done much more than our first lab and ran it the first time without any errors in it, you need to immortalize that for prosperity's sake because it doesn't happen often. So I printed 5 at symbols, right? Everybody got at symbols printed? You want to go back to the code? Yeah. So here's the function down here. And here's the line I use to test it. And I will promise you, you guys that are typing really slowly, by the time you finish your first couple of programming classes, your speed of typing will go up. By the time you've taken your first English comp class, where you have to write papers, your typing speed will start improving. Yes.
The lab is asking for exclamation points and.
What I do in here is this testing. You follow the lab instructions before you turn it in.
All right.
We have 25 different.
So what that question was is the lab gives you examples or tells you what to add in the main. Go ahead and add these exactly as they are. I was just trying to give you an example. So see, when you copy and paste, what happens? You end up with mistakes, right? If you copy and paste directly out of my Word document, it does not like the quotation marks. You have to go back and put them in correctly. And honestly, that's sometimes a lot more trouble than it would be just to write the line of code. Okay, I'll come look at it in just a second. You're having problems with the circumference one? Is that what you're telling me? Do you have circumference spelled correctly? What you can do is shorten the string up for right now and test it where you can see it all in one line. Let me do that for you real quick. So if I take this right now and take it out where the line's shorter, does that help? Yes, sir.
Are they supposed to print on the same?
No, they were not supposed to print on the same line. Each one prints on a separate line. Did they print on the same line for you? Hey, so
Maybe it's not functioning.
if you do this, they print on the same line. Why? Because the last time in the function is still not putting a return character. If you wanted to have a return character between the ones, you could just put an empty print statement in the end of your function. But that's completely up to you. Will I take it this way? Probably. Because I didn't tell you any different in the directions, I don't think. Did I tell you any different directions?
It says added.
Oh, yeah, see, if you go down one more line, it says to add it verifies, and it prints like this. So then we're going to have to add a line to do that. So to do that, we're going to go back to our function. And then when we're going to get outside of the for loop. So indent back once we're in, right? And put in just a blank print. If you do that and run it, now they print on separate lines. Yeah. No, because we're trying to prove that we want the characters on one line. If you put it in the for loop, it's going to put it between the characters. So all you need to do is indent back one to take it out of the for loop. If you wanted it to do that, where it was printing them vertically instead of horizontally, then you wouldn't have needed this special character. You'd have just printed them. Are we good? All right. Thumbs up if you followed me most of the way. All right. Thumbs up if you understood me when you followed me. Oh, I got some halfway in between. It's okay. I like it. I like the honesty. All right. What didn't you understand? Can you put it in a question for me?
Started going, well, when you went back. Let's do the loop, to be honest.
Okay, the loop's pretty good. Let's look at the loop again. All right. Remember, a for loop has an index or I, which is what time we're on through the loop, right? In range tells me, the count tells me how far we're counting. So if I put in 5, then the loop's going to run 5 times. Does that make sense? Then we're going to print whatever is in output. You're not paying attention to me.
I got my eye.
So print whatever's in output. So it's going to take whatever character I put here, going to print it out, going to take the return, the end of line thing off where it's all in the same thing. And then when I'm finished running the loop, I'm going to print one extra blank line, one extra line. So just make it go down to the next line. Does it make sense now?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you sure? All right, you down towards the end of the row. Is that the same question you had?
We're just gonna copy what you do.
Okay, you have no idea what you did?
I don't know what I changed, but I was looking at an error and then I ran it again.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's what we call a happy accident. And we just accept it and we go on. What she said is that she's not sure what she changed, but she changed something and now it works. So as a new coder and an experienced coder, sometimes that just happens. Just like we have a problem over here, which I've never seen before, where it just will not convert a variable. Did you finally figure it out? Do you know why you figured it out? What was wrong?
Same mistake as that one time you got pissed at me because the lock was off. It wasn't even the code.
It wasn't the code, see?
No. I'm just a dunce.
No, you're not a dunce. I promise.
It's been a hot minute.
It's been a hot minute since anybody called a dunce. All right, so I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm never gonna be truly angry at you. I might be a little frustrated. I don't.
I'm gonna have it, you're like, your gnome lock is off.
Unlock, yes. So, but it proves that it's really easy to miss the obvious. Because you and me both missed it. I'm assuming you caught it. And it took a third person. This is why I will never tell you that you can't ask your neighbor to look over your code. They can't write your code. You should never touch the keyboard of your neighbor's computer. Because even if you're telling them something, they should do the typing because it helps them cement it in their brain. But you read your code the same way you read your papers that you turn into your English class. Your brain reads what it remembers right. So that's why you don't see spelling mistakes. You don't see grammar mistakes sometimes because your brain's reading what it intended to write, not necessarily what's there. So oftentimes getting your neighbor to look at for something, especially a logic error, they'll catch it faster than you because they didn't write the code, so they had to process it all. And don't assume that it did what it was supposed to do. I will find most of your syntax errors really quickly because I've looked at code for 30 years. Yeah, I'm old. You can put your eyeballs back in your head. It's okay. I will be 50 this year. Well, be 50 beginning of next year. It'd be all right. And age is just a number, so it's okay. So I did delete something out of here. I'm going to put back in now. Whoops, no, I'm not. I deleted something out of here. You guys need to put it back in before you turn it in. All right. So that gets us through what, part 4? 3. Oh, okay, sorry. Now we're gonna do part 4. Look, I'm gonna put this up here. We're gonna draw 2 boxes on the string. Guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna import our turtle.
Okay.
Then we're gonna draw a function or create a function for draw square. And then we're gonna use it. Right? This is gonna come in handy for later. How many of you have looked at assignment 4? How many of you are freaked out after looking at assignment 4? I'm gonna pull it up in a minute and show it to you before we leave. All right, so in here, first thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna go over to my code. I'm going to the very top and I'm putting in import turtle. Because if you don't, the turtle commands are not going to work, right? I'm coming down here and I'm going to define draw square. It's going to take a turtle and a size. Why is it going to take a turtle and a size? We need to know how big our square is going to be, right? Why does it need a turtle? Because we have to create a turtle object, and now that we're using functions, we're going to create that turtle object in our main, and the turtle effectively now lives inside of our main and can call functions from main, but we're not going to create a turtle inside of every one of our functions, because if we do, every time you call a function, you create a new turtle, and then you'll have a whole bunch of turtles all over your string. Which is great if that's what you intended, but not so great if it's not what you intended. And you also won't be able to move any of those turtles once the function's finished because it doesn't have a variable name. So the only thing you can move is the last turtle created. Now you got just a pile of turtles. All right, so we're going to pass in the turtle and we're going to pass in the size. I'm going to use a variable name turtle and size because that makes most logical sense to me, right? So inside of here, if I want to draw a square, what do I know I'm going to need? A for loop. And I can just go ahead and put 4 in here because a square only has 4 sides. If it has more than 4 sides, it's no longer a square and it should not be in this function. Right? Can I make a function draw a polygon? Absolutely, there's a lot more math to that. So in here, we're going to have our turtle go forward, size. Oops, I cannot type today. And then turtle right. Right. Now, this will draw a square of any size whatsoever. We're going to write a second function called Perform Turtle Box Trot. No, I didn't come up with this. Somebody else did. And this doesn't take any parameters. Because I said so in the directions. It's just going to do something for our turtles. So, because we are mixing things, and we have math on like geometry and shapes, and then we're going to have turtles, I am actually going to create this. This is what I call a helper function. We're going to create the turtle and stuff here where it's not mixed in with the math. Normally you would create objects in main, or a lot of times you'll create objects in main. We're going to do this helper function this time. So we're going to create our turtle, and from here we're going to call draw square from inside box trot. What I'm trying to show you here is that functions can call other functions. Does that make sense? And I know I just contradicted myself because I said that we were going to do the turtle in main. And normally we would, because that's where we drive things. But to illustrate a point, we're going to do two different functions. This one's going to be our turtle kind of driver class. So, but we can't call it main because it's not driving the whole program. So it's a helper function. Right? Because how many mains are we going to have in any of our programs that we turn in? One, and only one. I'm going to do some copying and pasting because I'm trying to speed up the time here. So we're going to put in our window, and we're going to have a turtle named Alex, because we know how to do this. We've done it a lot, right? We've created windows and turtles. And then we want to move our turtle to its starting location. In this case, it's going to be -300, 300, which puts us at the top left-hand corner if you're looking at the screen. Right? Why did I do that? Because I wanted to make sure we had room to draw the two squares. Why did I pick -300, 300? Because I've done this enough to know that that puts you in the top left-hand corner. If you didn't know, you would have to guess or estimate where you want to start at. Again, I'm copying and pasting to save a little time. I'm assuming y'all copy and paste when you're at home. At least some of you do anyway. And now I want to draw the first box. So inside of this function, I'm going to call another function. The function I'm calling is draw square. And I'm going to tell draw square that Alex is drawing the square. And he's going to draw it 300 pixels wide. Does that make sense? And when I do that, now I need to add perform turtle box trot. Oh, that's hard to say really fast. I need to call it in main where it runs. And when it runs, it will call draw square. So let's go test that theory. Let's see how many typos and messed up things I have. Now, what you see is one square on the box, one square on your screen. The thing you should know, and the reason I'm pointing this out is because our project next week actually has you drawing a lot of stuff for the turtle. When I wrote my draw square, I made the turtle end at the same place it started facing in the same direction. Why is that important? Because when you go to draw your next object, you need to know which direction your turtle's facing, because all we know how to do is go forward right now. And if he was facing up, forward would take him to the screen. Right? So these are just things you need to be aware of when you start drawing. In the assignment 4, you have to draw a specific figure. So these are things you need to know. All right, so if we keep going, we want to add another call to draw a square to put a box right next to this one. So to do that, we're going to come back down here and we have drawn box 1. We want to draw box 2. Now, most people say, oh, well, we're just going to copy and paste the line from draw box 1. That won't work because all that's going to do is draw the boxes on top of each other. So if we want the box to be right next to the box we've drawn, we have to use some logic. So what would we need to do? We need to pick up our pen. We need to move him somewhere, and then we need to put our pen back down. Now, what do these numbers right here need to be to move him to the place we want to start our second box? Our math majors.
0,
300. Why? Because the box we initially drew was started at negative 300, 300. We want it to go horizontally across, so we don't have to change the y value. So y is going to stay the same, which is always the second number in a coordinate system. So we say we keep the positive 300. We know the box we just drew was 300 pixels wide. So negative 300 plus 300 gives you 0. So we want to move over from 0 to 300. Then we could just copy and paste this. And it should draw us both squares. Yes, sir.
Isn't taking the pen unnecessary in this case, considering the fact that we already went over that segment?
Yes, you could leave the pen down and it will draw an additional line over the top of your box, which we won't see because it was already there. However, if you get in this habit, you will forget to pick your pen up in other times, or if you had changed the color of the box, you would override your initial color.
Okay.
So it's just bad practice.
Fair enough, fair enough.
So does everybody have 2 boxes on their screen?
you go back up to the.
To main?
To the, part where the one of the box. Oh,
Yes, sir. You didn't put your pen back down somewhere. So look and make sure you have a down. You're not missing a down. That's a common. Okay, let me come check it. All right, I'm gonna check on him and see why it's not putting his pen down. Anybody else have a problem? Okay. It is right at time to leave. We are going to have assignment 4. You have to draw a school bus. That's assignment 4. Got it? School bus is crazy. Sorry. Might be.
My arm
Ready?
broken.
All right. So when you read
Gonna
the
do all
bus,
this.
functions you have to pass. The functions are not necessarily in the order you write them in.
You can write them. You know, do parts of it where you want to. There's a function for draw circle. I'm gonna say that there's a function in the API for draw circle. Go look it up. Don't try to recreate a circle by yourself.
You do it in these slides, is that good?
Having talking rock, not talking rock.
Okay. If you go scroll up to draw square.
To draw square,
Yes.
on the document, on the Word document or on the file? Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Did not see you coming.
This team starting.
I believe that's not. I'm sure they said comments in the press release. Let's get some comments. Oh,
Oh. This main thing is killing. Session. Sorry. I just thought I'd be around to university. Like that.
Do it.
I'm be at university. Like, see. I didn't think. You know, Bill. Oh my gosh, you got it. That's.
And so it's the first one you said. Sorry, got the pin down and it did it.
It was, I think I'm sure. He said this freestyle pieces in the top. As a group, size. That's some.
I got him.
This line.
There's no.
What is it doing?
It is. Says.
Run it, Chuck.
Yeah, that's.
But, so I'm on the cycle this. Like you like this. It says it's not defined. Something spelled wrong. So it doesn't reconcile, it doesn't recognize this. If you need this, is this match? Now, that has nothing to do with it. Looking for function match. Now, there's where you define it, match that letter below. Define the function. Where did you define the function? Okay. Show me a function definition. Show me where a function, where you created and defined the function. Okay. So the spelling there match exactly the spelling of what you. Right. Spelling. I'm telling you. You do your best. Oh, come on, what's you got? See, you got two boxes. Right. Well, yeah. What? Yeah, you don't have to, you can put it anywhere in your code, it's just better. If I put it there, this was the. Right, go back, then I can't see. That window's always gonna pop up before it draws. I know, but like, it's not the import section that's making that pop up before. It's the order you put it in main. I'll be there. You have commented out in the main. All right, we have other people who did this. Another class. Fridays are done. Because you have it in there, and not need this. This needs to be in form boxes.
There was another problem, with moving it out like that is what I call oil pattern, and I'm gonna go. Using the tab open. All of everything.
What are they? You know where Lonnie? Hey, you wanna go eat? You can go eat. I got you.
I see you five demonstrations.
Alright,
I'm not gonna lie, I'm definitely emailing you, please be, available.
Yeah. I have office hours 1 to 3,
Today?
every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
All right, I might be back then.
It's just the way Windows and things work. If you didn't get an error message, look at your on the background.
You can come in here if you need to.
I just blew their minds today.
What you talking about?
I taught them to use and write functions. This is intro Python.
Oh, Python?